Hey everyone, welcome back to my painting tutorial. My name is Jay, and today I'll be showing you how to paint this Dark Angels company master named Balthazar from the new Dark Vengeance starter set. I base coated all of the silver metallic areas of the model with Lead Belcher. Lead Belcher is an amazing base color and goes over pretty much any color with a single coat. That being said, if you find that you don't have amazing coverage after one coat, feel free to do another one, as this doesn't tend to blur the definition of the parts of the model. For these silver areas, I focused on the top parts of the gun and certain jars or grenades that were on his belt. I also used Lead Belcher on the vents of his helmet and the parts along the sides of his helmet. And finally, I used Lead Belcher on the vents of his backpack as well. To bring out the detail of these metallic areas, I gave them all a non-oil shade. If you wish to make them look older and dirtier, I'd recommend doing a 1-to-1 mix of Agrax Earthshade to non-oil. As this is a company master and most of his things should be bright and pristine, I just went with the non-oil. I then did my first highlight over all these metallic areas with Iron Breaker, the first layer color associated with Lead Belcher. As you can see, once again I used an overbrush technique. If these areas had large flat surfaces, I would tend to use a dry brush technique, but they don't, so I just used overbrush. As you can see, I'm just focusing on the edges and the raised areas of these parts to make them really pop and stand out from the recesses. I always recommend doing highlights on metallic areas, especially silver metallics, because it really is an interesting way to add just a bit of texture to these areas. If not, they tend to look a little bit flat. Now that the silvers are done, I started on all the gold areas with the base color Balthazar Gold. As with Lead Belcher, Balthazar Gold does an awesome job of going over all these colors with a single coat and is a great base color for gold metallics. I focused the gold areas on the top parts of his helmet, the parts of his sword, pretty much the handle, as well as some of the decorated ornaments that are hanging on ropes, both on his front and back. I also painted all of the symbols on him gold, specifically the skulls on his forehead, his backpack, the symbols on his backpack, as well as the ones on his combi plasma. It becomes especially important to take your time and do very thin, long brush strokes when painting above the feathers on the chest symbol, as the slightest deviation could accidentally paint the feathers and gold shows up really strongly on the white. And as you can probably tell, this was a pretty lengthy time step, as there were many gold areas on the model, and you want to take your time, make sure to get a nice even coverage over all the gold areas. When all these areas were finally base coated, I gave them all a black-brown shade comprised of a 1-to-1 mix of Agrex Earth Shade to Nuln Oil. This will, as I mentioned earlier, get in the recesses as well as darken them and provide an older, worn out appearance on these gold areas. Plus, the Agrex Earth Shade is a great complement to golds. And luckily, shading never takes as long as base coating, so it didn't take me very long at all. I then highlighted all these gold areas with Gehenna's Gold, a really nice warm reddish gold, and as with my previous highlights, I just did a simple overbrush. On the helmet, I tried to do a nice gradient of starting at the base and pulling the paint towards the ends, so that way it produces a really nice gradient of highlighted gold to darker gold. And for my last step, I gave them all once again a highlight with Auric Armor Gold, and I tried to keep that same gradient going from the very top to the very bottom of the helmet. For the second highlight, choose specific edges you really want to stand out when light hits it correctly, and these will be the areas in which the light is basically hitting. As you can see, I'm just focusing on the most outer edges of the sword, and as well as the handle of the sword, and just a little bit of each of the medallions that I really want to pop. And that's it. You now know how I painted up my Company Master Balthazar from the Dark Vengeance starter set. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I think the model turned out pretty nicely. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section down below. And till next time, this is MiniWarGamer J saying, happy painting everyone.